Pod Pals, if you want some of my best podcasting tips, make sure you're subscribed to my free Podcasting Business School newsletter. Every Thursday, I sit down and write a fresh newsletter in real time without the use of any AI, and here's the best part. My newsletter topic is completely different from my podcasting topic each week. So, if you want to join the 4,000 plus podcasters that are reading my Podcasting Business School newsletter each week, head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school or just hit the link in the show notes. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help you grow your audience and turn your podcast content into new clients. But today, we're talking about something that I'm definitely not an expert in. And that's one of the things I love about this show. When I bring a guest in, I really challenge myself to bring somebody in with a different set of skills, with a different experience in the content creator journey. And today I've got a home run swing for you. Y'all, you're going to love this one. We've got Justin Morin, and he is the go-to person as far as sponsorships, brand deals. And you all know that I always talk about using our show to get clients. And I challenged him. We actually met on Threads. We were interacting a little bit. And I go, you need to come on the show. And if you can teach my audience how to get brand deals without a giant audience, it's going to be a home run. He goes, bet. I got you, bro. So Justin, no pressure, but I'm excited to have you on the show, man.
Dude, I thrive on pressure. We're gonna make people some money today, Adam. I'm excited, man.
Oh, I love it. He brought his own sound effects, y'all. This is good. He probably saw I was recording on Zoom. He's like, I better bring my own sound effects for this one. Okay, Justin, I would love to hear the story about how you have become obsessed with connecting content creators to potential brand sponsors, et cetera. So how did that become your thing?
Yeah, so I'm actually an engineer by my background, man. I was in medical devices before any of this creator stuff. And it was actually my wife, April, who started posting videos on YouTube back in 2009. So way back in the day, it was very much a hobby for her. The partner program or the AdSense revenue share program was just starting at that time. And brands started reaching out to her pretty early, actually, but it was not offering to pay her. It was offering free stuff like, hey, we'll send you this, free product, this gift or whatever, or, access to this software program or whatever in exchange for you talking about us in a post. Right. And it was that way for years, dude. Like we were in our early 20s, we had no money. And so like free wardrobe, free cosmetics for her, it was like, let's go. Right. And so after, a long time of doing the free stuff thing, I decided to go back to school and get my MBA at night after work. And I started taking all these classes around marketing and negotiation and advertising and sales. And I went back to her one night and I was like, honey, I kind of feel like you're getting the short end of the stick here. Like you have hundreds of people, commenting on your videos, thousands of people watching, and they're saying, hey, thanks so much. I just went to the store and got it. Or, oh, thanks for telling me about this brand. I never heard of it. And so a free $30 hair curler is not adequate compensation for the value that you're providing to these advertisers. And so this is what led us to basically start asking for money. And surprise, surprise, some of these advertisers said, sure, why not? If I remember, I'll never forget this one brand. We asked, do you have a budget to collaborate? And they said, yeah, if you can include us in 2 videos a month, we will pay you $700 monthly. That our minds were so blown at him because that was like most of our rent at the time. Yes. And so initially we thought, okay, can we find 10 more brands just like this? Right. And so this led us down this journey over the last 10 or 15 years. We've earned over $5 million in brand partnerships, just us personally. I ran an ad agency for 7 years, paying out millions of dollars to other creators and podcasters and so on. And then over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been educating people how to do it themselves.
What a great story. I've heard you tell that from stage before, and it's great. And it reminds me, like I mentioned, that I started off in the health podcasting space, and getting free stuff is the gateway drug of monetization. I feel like right. I used to play a little game with my health podcast where I would go through my Instagram stories, and Instagram stories tell you what you want to buy, right? Like, oh, you should buy this, right? It's like the algorithm knows. And I would just reach out to companies and ask them for free protein powder and weird like massage devices and things like that. But my all-time best score, I got a $5,000 infrared sauna because I asked for it, and they told me they wanted me to just go live from the sauna. So I did a sweaty sauna cast and I got a free sauna. But the thing that we didn't factor in was my iPhone would die after about 17 minutes because it got so hot.
Yeah.
It overheated.
Right.
But stuff like that, like it motivates you like, wow, my knowledge, my content is worth something. And that just, it blows people's minds, right?
It 100% does. And I want to make sure that, anyone who clicked play on this episode and you're thinking to yourself, okay, this all sounds good and well, but Justin, I'm not getting, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of downloads or listens or, like impressions on my content that I'm posting. This episode is probably not going to be relevant to me. I want you to stick around because I guarantee you that even if you have a podcast and you primarily are using it to attract clients to your coaching business, or maybe you're a speaker and or maybe you're an agency or whatever, you're trying to drive leads to your company or whatever, I can guarantee you that sponsorships can still serve and play a really important role in your business, not just for you to make money, but to actually more capably serve your audience and your customers.
Let's dig in, man. You get me all fired up. 3 of the most hated words in podcasting is CPM. Those are letters, I guess I should say. Three letters, CPM, cost per mil. And can you explain what the traditional CPM compensation model is? And is it possible for podcasters, especially with a smaller audience, to break free of that CPM, the compensation model?
This is probably the biggest myth that I think a lot of podcasters have, is because they think, so first of all, to explain what CPM is, as you mentioned, so basically for every 1,000 downloads of your show, if you have a $35 CPM, let's say for an advertiser that they're offering this to you, that means you would make $35 for 1,000 downloads. And like, there's a ton of podcasters who are getting, anywhere from 100 to 500 downloads per episode. That's kind of the average that they're doing. But again, the audience is very niche. The audience might be super high value. And so, yeah, if you're going after some of these more traditional volume-based deals, of course, that's not going to make sense. You're not going to want to, get paid $35 to hawk someone else's product. I empathize with you. But that's why those types of deals suck. Especially if you are someone who has a deep subject matter expertise. Sponsorships can be incredibly lucrative for you. I want to share a quick anecdote that'll hammer this home. So I have a client, her name is Dr. Alex, and she has a podcast called Digital Pathology Place. So she's a veterinarian, she's a doctor, she's a veterinarian, okay? And she is not getting 10,000 downloads per episode. She's getting 100, 500, 1,000. But who's in her audience? It's the people in the C-suite at the hospital system. It's the people working at the medical device companies. It's the executives in charge of making large purchase decisions for these medical devices. She told me that on one of her recent live streams that she did, I think it was on LinkedIn or YouTube or something, someone purchased a $250,000 piece of medical equipment. And she had 100 people on that stream, or 50 people or something crazy, right? And she is absolutely crushing it with brand partnerships right now, because if you think about the audience, not only the demographic, but the psychographic of who's in her audience. If you're a medical device company, you're a biopharmaceutical company, you're spending $40, $50 million a year on advertising, you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, where are we going to spend this money? Well, I guess we could run meta ads maybe, but there's some regulatory hurdles there. Well, I guess we could run it, an ad in the trade magazine that sits in the doctor's office that no one reads. That's $50,000 for the year. Actually, or we could go hire Dr. Alex. We could fly her out to our trade show, speak on stage on our behalf to our R&D plant. She could have our director of marketing on her podcast and talk about the latest and greatest thing that we have in up the pipeline for our products. That is such a high value return for that advertiser. And so what I always come back to is especially if you're someone who has a deep, highly focused niche audience, sponsorships can be incredibly lucrative as long as you're not tripping over that CPM model.
Yeah. That CPM, when I run the numbers, I post about this on Threads a lot. It's kind of one of my hot button things. It always gets a reaction. I'm like, CPM, they're going to pay us, around 20, 25, maybe $30 for every 1,000 downloads, but only 20% of total podcasts get over 1,000 downloads per episode, get over 1,000 download per episode. So it's mind blowing. It's very disheartening. So I'm glad that you kind of shed a light on a different perspective there. And I've got a framework that I call the podcast monetization difficulty axis. And we talk about niching down. That's like one simple step to just get to the bottom part of that grid where monetization is easier across the board. We don't have to have that giant audience. And as we grow, it gets more lucrative as we're niched down. But what you said there, like being able, I'm thinking about a client that had a podcast for moms of triplets. And I'm like, let's go get a diaper sponsor. That's $3 for every mom that listens. Like that's a lot of diapers that they need to go through. Or that's very niche topic. I have another show that I've consulted on about. He teaches people how to use vending machines and place them and sell them. Like it's just like that's what I love about podcasting. The niche topics that we can kind of explore and go down. So there's opportunity here. Now, next question that kind of comes up for me is, what do these brands want to see? Especially if we're a smallish audience, we're getting 100, 200 downloads an episode. Maybe we've got a bit of an email list. We've got a bit of a social media following. Like, how do we initiate this conversation? And what do brands, like, how do we not look like idiots going, hey, I've got this show. I would love for you to pay me. Like, we don't want to be that person.
All right. I don't want to derail this episode, but before we get to that, I think there's a limiting belief that we need to overcome still. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Because you may hear what I just described about, yeah, CPM sucks. I hear you, Justin. Okay, great. Like, I would love to maybe think about doing this, but I still guarantee there's some folks listening to this thinking, okay, Justin, I don't even want to pursue sponsorships, because if I talk about a sponsor in my episode or my ad slot where I normally promote my own thing, my coaching program, my course, my community, whatever, speaking, whatever, I make 100% of that revenue. Why? So why would I, even if a brand is paying me some money to talk about them, why would I do that? Is it okay if I overcome this objection real quickly? Because I think
of
this,
course.
like, you'll stop listening. Anyone will stop listening to this episode unless I do this. So I have this philosophy where it's not about you. It's not about maximizing the amount of money that you make in your business. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, your goal has to be serving your audience and your customers. And actually, it's quite myopic of you to believe, as a podcaster, as a business owner, that the only way in which you can serve your customers or your audience is with the things that you directly sell. So here you go. Adam, you run a business where you help people, you consult on podcast growth, podcast strategy, right? But if you were to run a survey of your audience, of your customers, and you say, hey, tell me about what's going on in your life. Tell me about what's going on in your business. What's keeping you up at night? What are the problems that you're having? You're going to get a wide variety of answers. And I bet you that a lot of those answers are going to have nothing to do with podcasting, right? Yeah. You're going to have people saying things like, you know what, I'm really struggling with work-life balance, right? I'm trying to make this podcast side hustle thing work, but I've still got the full-time job. My relationships, my marriage is suffering because I'm like burning the midnight oil, like all these things, right? Are you going to start a marriage family therapy business, a life coaching business to help them with those other life challenges that they're experiencing?
Not currently planned.
Yeah. The anxiety that they feel that their savings are dwindling. No, you're not going to do that. But you know what might make sense? For you to go out proactively to a company like the Calm app and say, hey, I've got a bunch of business owners who I did this survey and they're saying that they're struggling with anxiety because of this entrepreneurial, venture. What an interesting integration that would be in your podcast. And guess what? You are serving them now in a different way, right? And guess what? When this person is now more emotionally regulated, they're probably going to be in a much better position to invest in your coaching program, right? So I call this framework your PSA, your products, your sponsors, and your alliances. So the products are the things that you directly sell, right? Like your coaching, courses, et cetera. Your sponsors are like the Calm app. You go out there and you forge deals with products and offers and services that you're never going to personally create. It just wouldn't make sense. And then this final bucket is called alliances. And this one scares a lot of people too, which is basically like, hey, is your friend a life coach or some sort of, marriage family therapist? You better put their offer in front of your audience too. Because again, it's about serving them. It's about helping them. And the whole point here is that the trust that you instill in your audience when you are helping them solve those problems, you're actually going to make more money in the end, because once they're finally ready to invest in your thing, you just have such an incredible image in their mind as someone who's served them throughout their journey.
Okay. Now, you've opened a basket of other questions for me here, Mr. Justin Moore. Okay. So my audience knows this. One of the core strategies that I have with my content as an audio focused podcaster is what I call my single CTA rule. So I myself and, the thing I challenge my audience to do is to have one call to action per episode. I feel like the podcasters that run that intro and it's just the jingle and they ask their people to do 12 different things. They're like, follow me here, here, here. Also the freebie, also the paid thing. And now a word from our 3 sponsors. I feel like as somebody consuming an audio podcast, they aren't sitting in a dark room just like focusing on the words coming in. They're washing the dishes. They're driving their kid to school. They're mowing the lawn. They're working out. They're doing something else. So we throw too much at them, they won't do anything. I am a fan of what I call content campaigns, like 3-ish week campaigns where we focus on one call to action per episode for a 3-week campaign. Can what you just said and what I just said marry and make sense?
100%, because every episode can serve a specific purpose. So if you have a bunch of different, things in your business that you would like to promote, some things are your own products, some things are sponsors' products, some things are your friends' products. One CTA per episode can absolutely be maintained and adhered to if you're able to be, think about your content strategy in advance, right? If you're flying by the seat of your pants and you're filming what am I going to promote today? Like, it's going to be hard because you're going to wake up 2 months later and realize, oh man, I promoted my own stuff 90% of the time or sponsors 90% of the time. And I'm not giving adequate airtime to these other things that are important to me. And so I think you look at it as buckets or campaigns, as you would say, right? You plan out your next 6 months of episodes and you say, okay, these episodes are going to promote this, these episodes are going to promote this, and they all serve a broader purpose of helping my audience.
Okay. I feel better about that. See, we're finding a happy medium here on Podcasting Business School. Okay. So now back to the previous question of how do we start making these connections and look professional when we are making the approach and not like a desperate newbie podcaster?
Well, I think, let me tell you what not to do, which is to slide in their DMs and be like, hey, I've been using your product or your tool for 3 years and I love it. I have this podcast where I get this many downloads and I have these audience demographics. I'd love to figure out a way to collaborate, ? And then you get ghosted, right? Whether that's in the DMs or you're sending it to like press@brand.com or the support email or something. And then you basically tell yourself like, I didn't want to work with them anyway. Pitching doesn't work. Brand deals aren't for me, and you kind of get all jaded. You have to think about it. Imagine you're a marketer. A lot of folks listening here, I imagine, are business owners, entrepreneurs, and you also have been on the receiving end of bad outreach, right? What is that? What form does that take, right? Well, number one, usually that outreach is all about them. It's like, I, here's how you can help me. And you're like, I don't even know this person and I'm definitely not going to respond. Or it's way too open-ended. It's like, would love to jump on a call and pick your brain and figure stuff out. And it's like, these marketers do not have time to like jump on, a million random phone calls with people, even if you have a large podcast, even if you have a lot of downloads or listens, right? Because there's the cold truth of it is that if you lead with the size of your audience, well, the reality is that lots of people have large audiences. Lots of people have large podcasts. And so that alone cannot be your differentiator. And so I encourage people to use something that I call the rope method when it comes to doing outreach with brands. And I talk about it in my book, Sponsor Magnet. So R stands for your pitch has to be relevant to a campaign that the brand is either currently running or has run in the past. Okay. O stands for organic, meaning that you can tie your pitch back to an existing episode, an organic episode of your podcast that you've already created that illustrates that your audience has existing affinity for their brand or their category or their industry. P stands for proof, so you can show how you've helped other brands achieve results. And E stands for easy to execute. When they say, hey, they're kind of interested. So you're actually pitching them something. So in order to really hammer this home, Adam, I think that we should do a real-time example and try to get your podcast sponsored. What do we think about this? Let's do a little case study here.
I love using my show as a case study and getting free coaching from experts. This is why I do podcasting, Justin Moore.
Okay, so going back to that example of how important it is to survey your audience and your customers to see what's going on with them. Have you ever done something like that before to help inform your own marketing strategy for your coaching, for your courses? Okay, so give me some data. Give me some, just to paint a picture for me of like what the listener persona is.
Well, if we're talking about pain points and what they are, like obstacles that they're looking to overcome, a lot of people are doing this as a side hustle. They are starting as a side hustle. They do have monetization goals, but they really struggle with consistency, with organization. Like you talked about earlier, going, if you're that person that's going to map things out 6 months in advance, then this is easier. But if not, they're kind of in that if not category. A lot of them are. And they are obviously struggling to grow. They're struggling to understand technology. A lot of people have never marketed before. I call us 000 podcasters. So they have 0 email lists, they have 0 followers on social media, and they have 0 podcast subscribers, and they're building it up organically like I started to back in 2015. So yeah, an email is something like I'm a big fan of the Podcast Plus newsletter, like a huge fan like of that, the power of that. And what we're talking about today, that seems to make a lot of sense too. And a lot of them don't see it. They see it at, they jump like, I'm already doing YouTube and LinkedIn and all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, but email is an owned platform. So that's probably one of the pain points that I struggle with the most to get through to my audience and go, you really need to do this newsletter thing. So those are some pain points. Those are some struggle bus points.
Okay. So I got a pitch for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I just sent a request to you so I could share my screen so we could talk this through. Okay.
I love it.
Okay. You ready for this?
Ready.
Okay, so you just talked about the power of podcasting and having a newsletter. So a tool that I use for my own business is called Kit. They're an email marketing platform that allows you to, stay in touch with your most engaged listeners, right? So this could be a perfect sponsor for you, right? But we have to be strategic about it. We can't just come to Kit and with the pitch that you just gave me, because that's the pitch that a lot of people would give. Oh, talk about how important that is, right? Yeah, sure. We need to do a little bit of research to see what it seems like is important in their universe right now. So I go to their website. If you're just listening to this, I'm going to talk it through, okay? At the very top of the website, there's a banner that says, see every new feature that we launched at Craft and Commerce 2026. So that is they have their own in-person event called Craft and Commerce, which I've been to. It's awesome. And they have like a bullet by bullet feature list of all the things that they're focusing on, subscriber signals, and they have an MCP now for AI, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all this stuff, right? If I went even a bit further, you know what I would do? I would go to their socials, Adam, and I would see, what does it seem like they care about? You know what they care about a lot? Because I know this. They just launched a brand new studio in New York. So they have these in-person studios where if you are a Kit customer, you can go and film your podcast there for free if you're a Kit customer. So think about what this pitch now sounds like, Adam. You go to Kit and you say, hey, I saw that you just opened the Kit Studios NYC. A huge problem that my audience struggles with is that there may be a side hustle, or they just don't have a home studio where they feel proud to show up, especially if they want to have a video podcast. Kit Studios solves this pain point. It's not just NYC, they have other locations too. This solves a huge pain point for my audience. In addition to, starting up this new distribution channel of having an email. How much better of a pitch is that now, Adam? Because, and you, by the way, that was just the relevancy piece, right? So the relevancy, and then, the Kit Studios, that's the first line of this pitch. And then the O in the rope method is the organic. And so you literally will link an episode that you've done in the past talking about how important it is to show up, or how you can show up professionally as a business owner or as a podcaster or whatever. And by the way, if you don't have an episode where you've done that yet, make an episode, record an episode ahead of time and use that in your pitch. So it's going to still serve your audience, right? Because that's a very useful episode, but you know that it's going to serve a double purpose. And then the proof point is you say, hey, here's how I've worked with this other brand over here and I achieved some great results for them. And then the easy to execute thing in the rope method is, here's exactly what I'm proposing to do for you. I would love to do 5 podcast integrations over the next 2 months. I'll give you the rights to repurpose that as an audiogram, my promotion of you for the next 60 days or whatever. I can turn around these ad reads in the next like 10 days for your review. Are you free on Thursday at 10 a.m. to talk about this? That's the pitch. It's not, oh, I've used Kit for 3 years and I love it. No, they don't care. It's what's in it for them, what's important for them.
Whew, this is why you are the creator wizard. Okay. So with all of that strategy, like that's it's got me all fired up to just give it a try and see if it works and see what happens. Now, I know that some of the people in my audience are going to be nervous about that. Mm-hmm. Like, I've got another strategy. I'm going to see if this could be a little in between as well. And this actually worked when I did sponsorships for my health show. This worked for me for connections. What about reaching out to somebody with your target brand and inviting somebody from their PR, HR, whoever, a scientist, if it's a health brand, onto the show and making friends with somebody first? Like, is that too long of a play? Do you feel like it's ineffective? Like, I would invite, if I wanted Athletic Greens to sponsor me, which they did sponsor my health show, I invited one of their sciencey people on the show first, and I just kind of made friends first, and then I asked for a warm introduction to somebody that makes marketing decisions.
Obviously, it can work. It worked for you. But I think that strategy, Adam, trivializes the distribution channel that you've created. Look, dude, for your health show, I'm imagining you had hundreds of episodes, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into producing that show, engaging with your listeners, growing the listenership over many years, right? And so allowing a brand access to that audience, that pool of listeners that you have expended your own social capital to develop over many years, makes no sense at all, in my opinion. Because think about the analog. If Athletic Greens is trying to get in front of a pool of prospective customers in any other way, if they're running meta ads, if they're running broadcast TV commercials, if they want to run out of home, billboards, bus benches, print magazines, whatever it is, they have to pay for that privilege. Meta does not give them the ability to do that for free. And guess what? Those audiences that Meta is exposing them to, in large part, are cold. Those are usually people that have never heard. Maybe they have some affinity. That like Meta has some signals that they have a higher affinity for certain industries. Fine, but like, there's very little that you can do to emulate the trust that you build as a content creator, as a podcaster, nurturing these people over many, many years. So, in my opinion, it makes very little sense to give access to that for free to a brand. Okay. I think that there are other ways in which you can build relationships with some of these decision makers, largely on LinkedIn, where you go and you follow them, you start engaging with their posts, you have some conversations in the DMs. I think that can be equally as effective as inviting them on your podcast. That's my hot take.
Okay, so if we flip that coin a different direction and go, I'm going to incorporate that type of exposure as a part of my brand deal.
Yep.
I know that some of the people that listen in, like, is that ethical? Or do I have to announce that this is a part of
100%? Just disclose it. Just say, this episode is sponsored by Athletic Greens, and I'm excited to share XYZ. The episode, again, is not going to be a giant shill fest for the entire thing. It's still going to be useful episode with lots of value, but it's going to be sponsored by the brand. And you say that up top. The FTC, if you're in the United States, the FTC is the Federal Trade Commission, and they have very clear disclosure guidelines that, you absolutely need to, be honest about the fact that there was an exchange of value. Look, the other thing too, that I think the myth that we need to dispel here is that your audience is going to get mad at you for doing this. As long as you position the sponsorship and how it will serve them, and also show behind the scenes of why you doing sponsorships allows you to continue to bring great free content to them every week and help them understand that. A lot of people, the only time they ever do sponsorships is when they say, okay, and now I'm going to transition into the ad read. And of course it's going to feel salesy and sleazy and it's like going to feel gross. But if you can literally say during the ad read, hey, and I just wanted to thank you, dear reader, I wanted to thank you so much, or dear listener, I wanted to thank you because, these types of partnerships, this is how I am able to continue making years, hundreds of free episodes for you to help you grow your business, right? So bringing them along for the ride, pulling back the curtain and helping them understand why you're doing it is a big part of this.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Now, the next question that I know my audience has for sure, especially if they've never even considered this before, is how in the world do we figure out the pricing? Is it something that we let the brand kind of take the wheel on, or are we setting something out there?
No, definitely not gonna let the brand assign the price.
I just got booed on my own show.
I'm sorry, man. I had to do it. Okay, for sure. Absolutely not gonna let the brand assign the price, because then you are allowing them the ability to either lowball you, go back to those CPM models that, this is how we usually work with podcasters, right? Something like that. You have to lead with, if this brand was able to accomplish this business outcome that they've identified that's important to them, what would that be worth to them? That's where this all has to start. So I think a big mistake that a lot of podcasters make is that they have a media kit or a rate card, right? And anytime they ever enter into any sort of discussion with the brand, they just send the media kit. They send the rate card. Oh, here's the packages. Pick A, B, C, D, E, whatever. Not only are you probably leaving thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on the table by doing that, but you're force feeding down this brand's throat things that they may not even care about. They don't want the dynamic ad insertion on the podcast. They don't want that. They want the interview with the CEO. That's the thing that they would get. But if you are not having a conversation with the brand about what's important to them first, it's just like in any client services, right? You get on a phone call with a potential client. What do? You play the role of a doctor, of a nurse, of someone triaging. You ask diagnosis questions. Tell me what your challenges are. What are your biggest pain points, right? This is what you're supposed to do as a service provider or a practitioner, right? It's the same idea when you're speaking with the sponsor. What are their challenges? What are their business objectives? What are they launching, right? And then you come back to them with a bespoke custom proposal where you say, hey, based on what you told me you're trying to accomplish and what your challenges are, I think that you should do, here's 4 packages, right? And each package is tied to one of those objectives, right? And so this is a totally different way of thinking about pricing sponsorships, because again, it's all tied back to what would it be worth for the brand to accomplish those things.
Okay. You get my idea of factory cooking over here, Justin. I got to tell you this, man. So I'm trying to put myself not only in my own shoes, but the average listener shoes, and really think about, okay, now we're starting to put things together. One of the things I talk about with clients and listeners when they do come at me with like sponsorship, brand partnership deal type of questions, it seems to me like if we can have multiple assets, that's a huge advantage for getting more value out of it. So just an audio read on a podcast versus adding a newsletter shout out or an interview on the show, or you've got 8,000 people following you on Instagram who can do a reel. Like, can you talk about adding those extra bells and whistles to our core content and what maybe adds, like, if they're like, oh, I'm going to build YouTube versus newsletter. If one or the other tends to raise the ability to earn income in a package deal, like any thoughts on any of that stuff?
Yeah, so it's a very real thing that like having more distribution points that you can offer to the brand. Oh, I've got this private community with 2,000 of my most engaged listeners in there. That's like a big, for sure, a big asset. But I do want to meet wherever, like, if you're listening to this, I want to meet you where you're at. Because as you mentioned, Adam, a lot of folks are probably still doing the side hustle thing, right? And adding any new incremental distribution channel is like a non-trivial act, right? Because it's like you only have so much bandwidth. You've got your full-time job. It's like, I can't do the newsletter and the private community and the social reels. And it's like, I got to pick something. And so I'll empathize with you here. And I think it's a great idea. Like, okay, if you're going to do something, I would for sure choose at least one other distribution channel. My preference would be a newsletter, because everything flows to my newsletter in my business, right? Because that is the single best way in which you can stay connected with your listeners, your potential customers, et cetera. And so I think it's a huge value proposition if you can go to an advertiser and say, in addition to the podcast ad read or the dynamic ad insertion on the back catalog or whatever, I can do a dedicated blast to my list of 2,000, doctors or health, aficionados of this, people who have celiac disease or whatever, like that's a hugely valuable thing. What I will say though, and this is really important, going back to the example of Dr. Alex, my client, a lot of times if you're a company or a biopharmaceutical company, being able to say that Dr. Alex is an ambassador of ours, that we are aligned with her, that is something oftentimes called a name and likeness advantage. If we can say that one of the largest voices, the most influential voices in our industry is in partnership with our company, that is so valuable. They can say that from stage at trade shows. They can say that, in their own, high value lead conversations with potential customers. If they can drop that and, Dr. Alex, she's aligned with your company, that could get the deal across the finish line. And so, especially going back to how important it is to have a niche, like you said in the beginning, Adam, if you are one of the loudest voices, even in a small pool, the amount of money that you could get paid for a sponsorship, for a partnership, should be completely detached from the actual deliverables that you're providing.
Well said. A tip of the cap to you on that one. The thing I'm loving about this conversation is that we're focused on helping content creators earn meaningful income. I mean, the through line that I keep on coming back to, especially with the energy and like the confidence that you deliver your message through, is that so many content creators, I'll say it, a lot of us feel like we don't deserve to earn meaningful income. I've got a show about Pokemon cards, or I've got a show about my favorite TV show, or I review movies, or my favorite sports team. It's a hobby for me. So, I mean, I just feel that this has been an important conversation just for those people, and be like, listen, you can actually make meaningful income, like pay your car payment income, pay your mortgage payment income, maybe start dreaming about quitting that 9 to 5 like I did, So can you speak to those people directly for a minute and just give them that last little pep talk that they need to hear?
I apologize in advance, but I'm going to get pretty deep here. Okay, you ready? I think a lot of this imposter syndrome or insecurity around your worth comes back to our childhood, actually. If you grew up in a family where money was tight or it was taboo to discuss, all of a sudden you're grown up now and you're involved in these negotiations with whether it's clients, whether it's brands, any type of partnership, and you're being asked about sums of money that would have felt ludicrous at any other time in your life. The idea of sending a counteroffer, the idea of puffing up your chest and saying, no, I'm not going to do it for that. This is the investment. Take it or leave it. That feels terrifying because it feels as though there's a power imbalance. And so I would suggest that anyone who resonated with what you said, Adam, that is just this, there's a lot of fear and anxiety and trepidation around valuing your worth. You may need to turn inward a bit and think about why that is. The good news, though, is that you can learn this stuff. You can learn how to get better. It's a big reason why I wrote my book, Sponsored Magnet, is to empower people to realize that, no, you actually do have a lot of power here. You actually do have a hugely valuable distribution channel that these brands are salivating to reach. And no, you should not give them access to that for free. And yes, the onus is on you to communicate that value to them. It's not about you getting pissed off because they're lowballing you or not valuing it. It's your job to communicate the value, just as it's your job if you have to convince a client to hire you. It's the same idea. And so I will say that some deep work might be required here.
Well said, man. Appreciate you saying that honesty. Again, that's what I love about being a content creator. We get to have conversations like this. It's so cool. Now, okay, we've got the book, Sponsor Magnet. You've got the podcast of the same name, Sponsor Magnet. One thing that I've heard other people talk about, my newsletter coach is Chanel Basilio, and she's a huge fan of what you do. And she's mentioned sponsor games before. What in the world is sponsor games? This sounds super unique.
Well, you know what, Adam? I was going to adhere to your one CTA rule, and I was only going to say, you know what? The only place you should go is sponsormagnet.com to pick up the book. But since you asked, I will fine. I'll talk about sponsor games. So sponsor games is my in-person event. Really where it came from was, I've been kind of, media focused conferences for many years. And at these events, there would always be maybe one or two talks about brand partnerships. And that never made any sense to me because I was like the majority of the income that my wife and I were making as creators for many years. And I was like, why is there no event? Just focus on this. And so for many years, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. And then I finally decided, well, I guess it's me. I guess I'm the guy who has to create this event. And so basically I've turned my 8-step framework that I talk about in my book called the Sponsorship Wheel. I took those 8 steps and turn them into 8 games that you play to actually learn and master these concepts. So it's a competition. So there's a cash prize. You actually go through the whole pitching and negotiating and contracts and concept production, feedback, all this. And there's actually brand deals that you can walk away. Our sponsors offer brand deals to the attendees that you have to apply for and compete for and stuff too. So it's a really fun event. There's no keynotes, there's no workshops, no panels. It's like you roll up your sleeves, you get stuff done. And like I said, a bunch of people walked away with actual like real life brand deals. So it's a super, super fun event. Sponsorgames.com if anyone's interested.
Nice. And as always, I'll put all the important stuff in the show notes. And I really want you guys to get on Justin's newsletter list. It's one of the most, my Chanel talks about it all the freaking time. She's like, this is so, and she like uses it as an example and everything. So highly, highly recommended there. What else do we need to tell my audience to do? Like what's as far as connecting to you, reaching out, any final thoughts, where do they need to go first?
I would say would love to hear from anyone, especially if you're wondering, like, would this work for me? Like, I would love to, whether it's LinkedIn, I'm Justin Moore. You could search, Creator Wizard or Sponsor Magnet, my book or whatever, or just DM me on Instagram works too. Creator Wizard. Love having conversations with folks. And, but really my one CTA, Adam, sponsormagnet.com. The book is going to help a lot.
All right, my main man, Justin Moore. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm so glad that you commented on a Threads post. Like, that's how we met, everybody.
I know.
This is an example of just like commenting. I say this all the time. Jumping in other people's posts and adding value and commenting is more important a lot of times than our own stuff. Like, that's where I get a lot of new listeners, a lot of clients. I jump into someone else's stuff and I just add value and I add to the conversation. That's exactly what you did. And you sparked a conversation, and we both kind of at the same time go, this needs to be a podcast episode. And now we're doing this like a week later. So I'm so grateful for you to spend some time here with my audience and myself to have this unique conversation, man.
Yeah, this is great, man. I super appreciate it.
All right, Pod Pals, all the important links will be in the episode notes. Make sure you go and check that out. Dive into Justin's world. And with that, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I will see you on the next episode. Hey there, good looking. Just a quick reminder to hit that link in the show notes and get signed up for my free Podcasting Business School newsletter. I'm going to send you a fresh, hot newsletter every single Thursday with some of my best podcast launch, growth, and monetization strategies. Hit that link in the show notes and keep your eyes on your inbox.